G'day guys, how you going? Hope you're all having a fantastic evening, or whatever time it is in your part of the world. If you're Australian, then evenings. But yeah, so I hope you're all doing very well. I'm going to be doing a movie review tonight. Now this movie is a Canadian horror film. It was made in 2008, directed by Bruce McDonald, and this movie is called Pontypool. Now this is definitely a movie that I could spoil very easily if I give a detailed description, so I'm not going to do that. You're going to have to watch it to see for yourself because you'll greatly benefit from it. You'll get more enjoyment out of the film if I give a limited sort of synopsis. Even the back of the cover, it gives away a little bit too much, which is really bad. So I'm going to give a very limited synopsis, and if you want to know more, you can either watch it or I can even PM you. But I'm not going to give out spoilers on my channel. So basically the film is set in Pontypool, which is a small town in Canada, and the main character is Grant Mazzy, who works at a radio station for a living. He's a shock jock. And this guy, the first 10 minutes really gives you an insight into how this guy is. I wouldn't say you don't dislike him, but he has very real problems. He is down on motivation, he's down on his luck, he doesn't have a lot of work coming his way. The only work he can get is an early morning show at the CLSY radio station, which is located in this abandoned church. So he's a bit down on he feels a bit sorry for himself. He's lacking motivation, he's lacking the enthusiasm needed to become a successful, well, he is already a successful shock jock, but his lack of motivation these days is really hurting his prospect of keeping his job. So his co-workers, they see this as a problem, and they're trying to big him up, trying to give him the confidence to get back to where he was. But you know, he's got his problems and paints a very real character, as well as his co-workers. So first 10 minutes is really just a very short character development and insight into the lives of these people. So one morning he gets there, and this is really an insight into the routine. It starts off as just a normal early morning show. He's talking, and listeners are calling in and giving their opinions on these controversial topics that this shock jock has raised. And then we have the typical weather report and the sky cam report from the helicopter. Just a normal sort of everyday radio show, the start of the radio show. But all this seems to change, and it is in fact a very, very different day to what they're used to. Now they get these calls coming in from the public and some from the reporters about these very strange behaviour in some of the residents of this town. And they don't know what it is. At first they just dismiss it as something weird. You know, we've all seen weird things before. But then as more and more calls come in, the situation gets a little bit more serious. And this is where they start to think maybe someone is playing a prank on them. Maybe this is just a big hoax and they're just right in the middle of it. So they're not sure what to believe. They're very skeptical. But then as more and more calls come in, and the behaviour of these residents is getting more and more intense and violent, they're very, very soon they realise that something is far more serious than a prank. Something is outside. I'm not going to give away what it is. Definitely something I could easily spoil, but I'm not going to. But whatever's outside is very frightening, and it's growing, and very soon they realise that they may not be safe inside this radio station. That's as far as I'm going to go with the story. Even, as I said, the back of the cover gives too much away, and even maybe the trailers. So I would probably stay away from the trailers and the back of a cover. I know that's very hard to do, but I don't know why they gave away that much of it. Very unique storyline, and as I said, a lot to it that really has to be kept in secret to get the full enjoyment. So that's the synopsis. That's as far as I'm going to go, and you're going to have to watch it to get the full impact of the whole film. So that's as far as I go with the synopsis. Now my thoughts. I'm going to tell you what I liked about the film. I like the fact that the whole film takes place inside this radio station, and that's pretty much the only world that exists. So anything that's happening outside is all left to your imagination. We're oblivious to what's going on. The only input we have the only insight we have into the outside world is what people are saying when they call into the radio station. So we're no smarter to the situation than the people are inside this radio station. So we really are put into their shoes, and we're experiencing what they're experiencing, and that is a level of uncertainty, which is creating a level of paranoia, which creates a lot of suspense. So that's what I thought was really unique about the film, and what its biggest plus was. Now, as I said, the whole film, inside this radio station, this is the world. As each call comes in, the world starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the outside fear is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that outside fear is really engulfing the radio station and really putting a chokehold on them and the viewer. And it's the level of imagination that you use that's the biggest key to this film. It's true, less is best, and less is definitely worked in favour for this film. I thought it was a masterclass in suspense. It was atmospheric brilliance. The fact that you don't know what's going on, you hear these calls about these disturbing events, and it's just left up to your imagination. You don't know what's going on, they don't know what's going on. So it really is a unique experience because you're going through what they're going through, because as I said, you're no smarter to the situation than they are. So it does create a whole new level of tension, and I thought that was really good. Now the acting was good. They portrayed very real characters. Stephen McHattie, who played Grant Mazzy, did a fantastic job. I thought he was a likeable character, but at the same time had many flaws. So, as I said, painted a very real character. The co-workers, there were a few lines of dialogue from the younger woman that were really quite odd. I didn't really like them, but having said that, it didn't take away from the overall experience. It wasn't down to the dialogue, it wasn't down to the acting performances, it was down to the atmosphere, which is absolutely brilliant for the first half of the film. Now, as far as others go, there's no violence. Well, there is a little bit of blood, but there's no gore, so gorehounds you're going to have to keep away. But if you want a real suspenseful experience, this is definitely one that will get your attention for the first half. Now, when I say first half, this is my biggest criticism of the film. First half brings up this level of paranoia, uncertainty, and just complete fear because you have no control of the situation. It's when the director puts the viewer in control that completely ruins the first half of the film for me. Now, the explanation in this film, I like the unique idea, but the explanation and how they come to that conclusion was absolutely ridiculous, tore all realism out of the movie, and completely ruined the tense atmosphere that the first half created. Now, my problem is everything these days seems to have to be explained. Now, what the biggest plus for the first half of this film was the level of uncertainty. Uncertainty creates fear because we don't know how to combat an issue if we don't know what the hell's going on. So, you're left thinking, okay, I don't know what's going on. How the hell do I react to this situation? That is a level of fear, and that is what created a terrifying first half of this film. Then we get the explanation, and the director really gives control to the viewer. And once the viewer has control, he sees the situation and we say, yep, okay, we addressed it, now we're going to combat this situation. That gives a level of control, and when the viewer has control, all fear has been taken away and really does ruin a genuinely horrific sort of suspenseful moment. And that's my biggest criticism of the film. It started off so great, but then the ending, the ridiculous explanation for everything, the fact that the director had to give the viewer control, and it completely ruined the first half of this film, because I thought this was heading towards a classic, an absolute brilliant masterpiece, but the last half just went down typical Hollywood crap and completely ruined the experience. I'm not going to say it's a bad film. It's not a bad film by any means, but just the fact that these days, the viewer wants control, and as I keep saying, it's a level of uncertainty and no control which creates real fear. And you don't have to be able to be in control of every situation, because that's not realistic. We're going to have situations where we don't know how to combat something, and that provides not only fear, but it provides fear, suspense, just a complete uncomfortable feeling because you know something's wrong but you don't know what's wrong. And then when you give a ridiculous explanation, and it's so ridiculous that it just looks like the director said, okay, we've had our fun, now the viewer is going to want to know what's going on. So no matter how ridiculous it sounded, that's what it sounded like the director wanted. So it really did ruin the first half of the film for me. I'm not going to say it's a bad film. It's not a bad film by any means. It just should have been a classic. It should have been a masterpiece, but unfortunately this one did fall short because of the typical Hollywood garbage ending. So I am going to recommend it. It's a very, very good first half. Brilliant first half. Very unique, very suspenseful, but as I said, the last half is really a letdown, and it prevents it from being a classic. So that's my review of Pontypool. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.